I've been watching this thing on YouTube. It's a 12-hour long summary of the Pokemon series.
Yeah. How's that going?
So I eat through it a little bit. I talked about this before.
Yeah. Now this is the anime series, correct?
Yeah, the anime series.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, like, maybe I'll just go back and watch these. You know, I'm done with my Simpsons marathon. I can go and watch something else. Do you know how many episodes there are of the Pokemon anime?
Oh gosh, like just the original or like all together?
What do you mean over the original?
Like just the original Ash Ketchum, the 150. Like, are you talking about just that one or like the whole franchise?
That's just the first season, man.
That ran like a couple seasons, right?
Well, I mean, there was the first season. There was like the Orange Island campaign thing, which was like season 1.5.
I guess technically, I guess what I'm asking is like the Kanto region tales, if you want to think of it.
No, I'm talking about all the Ash
Canterbury tales. Something there.
Yes.
Put a pin in that for later. I don't know. Okay, all of them. I don't want to have like an insane number and then it's
there are 25 seasons. How about that?
Yeah. Okay, and I know they're not big on taking breaks for anime, generally speaking, if they can avoid it. Conservatively, I'm going to say 870 episodes.
Oof, very conservative. Try 1,275.
I actually was originally going to say around 1,200, and I thought that was going to make me sound like an asshole. God damn it. Should have gone with my gut.
Yeah. So, bit of an undertaking if I were to do that.
Yeah, a little bit. I don't know. That, I have no interest in that.
Well, you know, I have to do stupid shit like this with my time.
Mm-hmm. Have to. Gotta.
Yeah, I mean, I spent all that time watching every episode of The Simpsons. Now I have to do something else with that time I allocated every day to watch The Simpsons.
Are you now staying caught up with The Simpsons, though?
Or yeah, you... Okay. Sort of. I'm like, I'll dip in and I'll watch a couple episodes.
Then you haven't watched every episode anymore.
No,
You've already fallen behind.
I have. I mean, okay, fine. I'm technically like 2 or 3 episodes behind, but I don't care. Like, once the season's over, then I'm done. I've completed my quest. Technically, I probably could have stopped like 2 or 3 seasons ago because like when I started, that was the last season.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So
giving yourself off like another 10, 15 years and then caught back up again.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I'll wait.
That makes sense.
I'm not gonna have it beamed directly into the chip in my back of my head or whatever, instead of having to, so I can watch it while I walk the dog. The fuck.
Yep. Oof. So, you know, I've been trying to get a little list together of games to get excited about the week that this is coming out. And so I was looking over releases for next week during that period, and gotta say, nothing really interesting. The only thing interesting is the Battlefront Classic remakes are coming out.
Yeah.
Which I am excited for those. But I don't know. The latest remaster to come out from the Star Wars franchise left me a little underwhelmed.
The Dark Forces one?
Yeah. You
didn't like it?
It didn't feel so much like a remaster as much as like, hey, we figured out how to make it work on a modern PC.
But isn't that what you want, right?
I thought it's what I wanted, but you know, there's something about it that like, I don't know. It doesn't feel the same. It moves too fast. I feel like I have very little control over the character, even though unlike a normal Doom, I can actually aim the guns. Everything is whipping and flying around way too quickly. For what I like. And maybe I just have to go in and tweak some sensitivities to make it feel right. But I don't know how I played so much of this game before. Like, yeah, there was that first initial part where with Glee, I was just like hitting enter or E or, you know, whatever control button there is to on every panel to try to find all the little secret walls and stuff. And I'd find them and be like, yay, great, I found a secret. But as far as objectives went, man, I forgot how old games play, where it's just like, you were told in the beginning that this is what you needed to do. You'll find it in the map somewhere.
Yeah. Well, that's like one thing I was when we were talking about, or when I spoke about that Warhammer bolt gun boomer shooter like retro style game, is that like I love the movement and then like the pace and the combat and all that stuff, but like one thing I have trouble going back to is old school level design. I want more varied environments. I want more varied like rooms. I don't want to just be like hallway or like, hallway big room, hallway big room, hallway big room, and like that was just very common back then.
Yep.
So it is like sometimes, especially with those things, like if it's not something I am like into, like when I went back and tried to play Shadow Warrior, is that it?
That's a game. That's an old game.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was like, because I'd never played it. I mean, I played like Duke Nukem and Doom and all that stuff, but I'd never played Shadow Warrior. And I was like, I kind of like some of this, but these levels are terrible. And I think it's just like you can put new textures on stuff, but you can't necessarily like make level design gooder. Although, I mean, that's the other thing. Is like at the time, all those games were like lauded for their amazing level design, and I think it's just like that style of level has. Like, because at the time, it was like, isn't it amazing how much they can get on one level? Like,
there's elevations. Like, there's...
Yeah.
I mean, that was
keep going and going
revolutionary.
and going. Like, yeah. So it was a pretty big deal. And, yeah, I don't... That novelty isn't there anymore, I guess.
I think that might be some of the things that are irking me with Dark Forces 2 is... And maybe it's that it's now on widescreen, so you're seeing so much more of it at one time. But the reuse of texture is so prevalent to where, like, I'll see the same pattern 3 or 4 times just looking at one spot without having to pan anywhere. And not that it's a huge deal, but it would have been nice for the textures to have texture. I don't know how much harder that would have been for them to, like, give a little bit of a 3-dimensional texture to the control panels and all of the bits and bobs and doodads. I imagine it would have been quite a endeavor, but couldn't have been that difficult. It's not like this is a massive game.
Well, I don't necessarily think it's like a point of can't do so much as it's like how much of a remaster do you want to do?
Yeah.
Like, there are games that are remasters, but there's entirely different games, and there are games that are remasters that are, like you said, they just give it widescreen support and make it run on modern computers. And like, I think it really depends on what your target audience is.
Yeah.
Like if you're like, we want to get people who love Dark Forces back in the day to come and play, to buy this and play it, then you want to kind of keep it as original to the thing as possible. But if your goal is to get a new audience who, like, say, never played Dark Forces or whatever game you're remastering, but like they've heard about it and they want to, like, you know, say they've played it, then you want to make it more friendly for more modern. Like, I think about,
That's
like,
fair.
the Crash Bandicoot and Spyro the Dragon remasters, where it's entirely rebuilt in Unreal. You know, like the layouts or the level layouts are the same and all that jazz, but they've redone a ton of stuff. And the point of that is, like, it's hard to play older 3D games. Like, if you're not like me who grew up on all those things, then going back and trying to play Spyro now, especially if you're a child, which those games are aimed at, it's very difficult. So, like, I think it's just, like, how does a company, when a company is told that they're going to remaster something, how they want to go about it.
That's fair. I think I've been spoiled a little bit by, like, the Halo remasters, you know, games like that, where you've got this literal, like, seamless setting that is just old version, new version, layered on top of each other. And it worked really well for those. They were a lot closer in time for each other, so I'm sure it's easier for the technology to, you know, accomplish that. But it spoiled me. Same with, like, the Uncharted games did the same thing. You've got your upscaled versions of graphics that you can just switch over to in the settings.
Yeah, well, I would point out that, like, both in Uncharted and Halo, games nowadays aren't that different than those were when they came out.
Right.
Like, we've just gotten better at, like, the graphics and the, you know, we have more little gameplay things added to it. But generally speaking, like, Uncharted now doesn't play as much different than the Uncharted did to begin with.
Yeah.
Just kind of more polished, as opposed to, like, that entire generation of Doom, Quake, boomer shooter stuff. Although the boomer shooter, I think it gets thrown around a little too much. Just any shooter from before Halo, it seems to be, is a boomer shooter now. We don't, those games kind of disappeared until like the retro scene started trying to remake those kind of games. Speaking of remaking old games for a modern audience, they didn't quite do that with this, but it kind of felt like it could be. In the game we played for this week, Metroid Dread.
Yeah, good transition.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, welcome to the Save State. This is a podcast where we talk about a video game we played.
Mm-hmm.
And this week we played Metroid Dread, which is not a remake of Super Metroid.
No.
But there were points where I kind of was feeling
How
it.
dare you? How dare you make that accusation? No, it's very
Super
it's very
Metroid
much
is
in
one
the
of my
bones.
favorite games of all time.
Oh, yeah.
So that is not an insult. But like, there are definitely some homages, we'll say, especially with some of the boss fights.
Mm-hmm. Super Metroid is such a wonderful game. Like, just in the last 2 years, I've gone back and played through. I feel like every couple years, it's one of those games I can revisit, and it's just the right amount of challenging that it doesn't matter how much I recall from it. It's still a fun romp, right?
Yeah, and like the controls are just so perfect. Like there are a few games you can go back to that are 20, 30 years old almost.
Yeah.
And like they just out of the box, they're just perfect. I mean, most of those are Nintendo games, to be fair. But there was something like about Super Metroid that I think I still go back and I'm like even like other Super Nintendo games that I have idealized, like, you know, Donkey Kong Country, or to a lesser extent the Super Mario World.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Super Mario World obviously holds up very well, but like there is no like, oh yeah, I have to remember this is an older game when I played Super Metroid. That's just, you just go and play.
It's just a really well polished, fine tuned game.
Exactly, and I think Metroid Dread kind of did all those things really, really well.
Mm-hmm.
Like I felt, I mean, it wasn't quite the jumping right back into a game I played before feeling, because it does take some twists and it is a bit of a genre mash 'em up in some spots, but you know, the responsiveness, like the way the character moved, the timing, the aiming, it felt great. I love playing this.
I've never seen a speed run. You know, I don't watch too many speed runs in general. I think we've established that by now on here, but Super Metroid is something that I would love to see a speed run of, because
they're great.
That movement is so fluid in it that you really do. It's the same idea in Super Mario World. You start building up all this speed, and in a lot of games, you're going to need to slow down at some point because an obstacle is going to be coming up, and you got to think about how you're going to get over it. They've designed it almost Sonic-like to just have this continuous flow of movement in these areas. And it's so fun to do those spinning jumps and runs and then slides. And this captured that back again for me. The movement is so perfect on it. I love this game. And I love how, of course, it starts its own Elder Scrolls prison sequence, right? As every Metroid does, where you come in super powered and then lose it all just to have to rebuild it back up. Very fun.
I will say that was not necessarily a frustration of mine, but like I definitely, it felt like it took me a lot longer to get a lot of that movement tech than it would in like Super Metroid, where I'm like, okay, when do I get Morph Ball? When do I get Morph Ball?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Nope, this isn't Morph Ball. Can I get Morph Ball now, please? But it still felt great when you got those things. And some of the newer stuff that they added to this it feels great when you can just sprint through. And so I mentioned this before before we decided to do an episode about this, but I was talking about how I was surprised at how there were some maybe survival horror elements to that, and like you have these unbeatable bosses, or well, temporarily unbeatable bosses that kind of sneak around.
The dread of Metroid Dread.
Yeah. And honestly, after the first like 2 hours of play, they kind of stopped being scary. Like you get enough tools in your arsenal that they're kind of just the game, like it doesn't really end up being that much of a horror game.
Yeah.
Because it's just like early on while you're very underpowered. Not that because like the only way to beat them is to get these like basically like they're like puzzles. You get a key that you need to use to unlock the special bullet that blows them up. But when you get like a lot of the movement and the combat abilities. They stop being obstacles that you're afraid of dealing with. You know, early in the game, you enter a room and it's all dark and spooky, and you're like, oh god, there's one of them in here. I have to be, what if it finds me? And later on, it's not really the case. It'd be like if in Alien Isolation, halfway through the game, you got like Blink and a machine gun, you know?
Yeah.
And like, so it stops
you
being
find
like
the
that.
BFG.
Yeah, exactly. Like it just kind of stops being terrifying, which I think was good because I really just wanted to. I think I just really wanted to play Super Metroid. I think so.
Yeah.
This was. I mean, what I actually wanted is I want Hollow Knight 2. Still, like it's just like, part of me is aching away that Hollow Knight 2 is not out, which is why I asked you for a Metroidvania game we should play.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad we went with this one and not something like Ender Lilies or one of those that pulls a lot more from Dark Souls. This is still a fun game and something I'd like to do and check out for this, but yeah, this is just your good classic platformer.
Yeah, I mean, this just feels so great to play. I think that was like my only negative I have to say about Metroid Dread is actually not Dread's fault at all. It's the Switch. Like, I wanted to play this on handheld mode. Like, I wanted just to kick it on my couch and play it. And I was getting hand cramps 20 minutes in.
That was my issue too.
Like, it's just like there's something about the movement control. Like, and I play other games on the Switch that are, granted, I generally play like less intensive stuff, but I've played Super Mario Odyssey and Breath of the Wild and stuff on there. I never had problems with hand cramps, but something about the way these controls work on the Switch when I'm not using a controller, like when I'm using it in handheld mode, was very taxing on like my hand muscles.
Right down my right thumb. Like that's where I'd get the most pain, like stress pain from. Yeah, it was an annoying thing because I was usually like having something on the background, and eventually I have two monitors, so I made it work anyways, but I wanted to play this in handheld mode like an old Game Boy game as well. Like that's how I wanted to experience it, and you can do it only for spurts, at least with my hands.
Yeah, no, I had the same problem, and like I was just like, okay, if I'm actually going to play this for any length of time, I'm going to need to dock this and play it on the big screen, which was fun too. Like it was still very fun.
I mean, there's third-party controllers that try to accommodate for adults playing something that is clearly designed for youths. I think the Switch's control scheme, like the whole setup, like they had kids in mind. Like when you undock one of those controllers and they're like, hey, you can just each take a controller and it's now a 2-player game. It's like, I don't know in what world you think I can hold one of these on their side and use it like a normal controller, but no, I can't.
Yeah, I mean, I remember the early, like seeing those ads for the Switch back then. I'm like, this is not going to go well for Nintendo, but that turned out different.
I'll be curious to see if they've widened everything for the Switch 2.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, the Steam Deck certainly is a bit bigger.
Yeah.
But like I said, I've never had that problem before with other games, especially because, generally speaking, when I'm playing in handheld mode, I'm playing like Ace Attorney or Fire Emblem or something where I'm not really like trying to do a lot of fast movements.
Even Breath of the Wild or one of those, like the combat's pretty brief. You're not trying to do too many crazy things with it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. That's true. But yeah, like that's not really a negative about the game at all. Like this game is as close to exactly what I wanted out of a modern 2D Metroid game. Like I don't know that I would have asked for like the little like the robots you had to sneak around and stuff like that. Like, but sometimes it's nice to have a little bit of a flavor difference. I'm just kind of annoyed that it took me 2 years to get around to playing this.
Yeah,
like this is a wicked.
That
awesome
was
game.
That was a week 1 release pickup title for me. Like that was a no-brainer. I was like, yep, I want this. At first I thought it was going to be a continuation of Prime, which I would also love. But once I saw it was going to be like a Super Metroid line of game, that's when I was like, yes, have to play it immediately. And God, it's so fun. I'm trying to think of, I mean, it's such a fun game that it's kind of hard to.
Yeah, that's one of the problems we have
with the good games. Is how much can you really say without just saying I like it?
Yeah. The soundtrack's perfect.
Soundtrack
The level
is
design's perfect. I will say, like, maybe if I have to find like another little niggle, is that maybe they were a bit too like
Is the countering system for you?
the countering system was fine, but like some of the boss fights, it got a little quick time eventy,
Yeah.
a little like repetitive in some of the boss fights. But I didn't mind it at all with the regular mobs, especially when you can kind of work countering into like movement tech.
Mm-hmm.
Like that felt great to just being able to like, counter off of stuff and have like a charged up beam, and
Yeah.
it feels really good.
Yeah.
Especially when you kind of are thinking like, what if I do this for a room? Like maybe I can just, bounce off of it. Like you have like a plan and then you do that plan. And the game didn't tell you could do that or tell you to do that, but you do that and it works out really well and it feels great.
Yes. The language of the level design really comes across kind of intuitively for the player.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's so many different, like, and maybe this is just because I've played Super Metroid and I played Metroid Fusion. Granted, many years ago did I play Metroid Fusion.
Mm-hmm.
But there is like very little tutorial stuff telling you about how stuff works or what to do. It tells you like what button does what. But other than that, like it doesn't tell you like, you need to use this for that. Like, but you just know. Like even stuff that isn't in other Metroid games, like I kind of figured out how to work it, and
Mm-hmm.
it felt really great.
Yeah. Just a long-awaited DLC for Super Metroid is really what it felt like.
Kinda.
And that's perfect.
No, it's funny because we started talking about remasters. So this really did feel like they started off making a Super Metroid remaster and like, no, we're just gonna make our own game.
Yeah.
And also, homage Super Metroid a lot.
Yeah. I mean, there's some Fusion callbacks and stuff too.
Oh, that's
within
true.
it.
That's true. Just Fusion left less of a lasting impression on me.
Yeah.
Something about the advanced. Although that's not true. Like that is something. Metroid Fusion to me felt like a much slower game, but like there were like I remember playing Sonic Advanced, and that game actually moved pretty quick. So
Surprise, a Sonic game moved fast, huh?
well, a Sonic game after Sonic 3 moved fast.
That's
yeah.
fair. That's fair.
Let
me ask you this: did you beat Dread all the way through?
I did.
Okay.
It took me a long time.
Yeah.
Took me
How was that? How was that final boss fight? Did you have to stop trying to beat it and go back and do a few more things before you went back?
Because I knew when the final boss was coming up, and I did kind of look up. Like, I went through almost like all the game until I knew like, okay, this is where the final boss is going to be, and then I was like, I'm going to look up where all the stuff I missed is. And then I'm going to go back and get all that stuff before I go on, because I know, like, if this is super, like, there's going to be a boss fight and there's going to be escape sequence, so I'm not going to have time to go back and find all the secrets. So that's what I did. So I was, like, the final boss was not the hardest boss for me. The hardest boss was the first time you encounter two of those, like,
that is very difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, so you, like, one of the boss, like, mini boss types, sub boss types is, like, these robot things that you fight that aren't the same as the ones you have to sneak around, but they're like robot goop monsters. It's hard to explain. My decision to adhere and know literally nothing about the Metroid story has resulted in me not knowing what anything's called. But they're not easy fights, and then you end up a couple times fighting two of them, and the first time you end up fighting two of them at once. I had a lot of trouble with it.
Yeah. That, it's funny. The Emmys, though, did give me a little bit of difficulty, and I think it's because of the way the aiming works on them. So the whole game is 2D, old school platform designed layout for you until you fire up the Omega Cannon, go into aim mode on that, and then it becomes this weird 2.5. Not where the depth expands. It doesn't go isometric like in a classic sense, but it almost does a over like side shoulder pivot. It's such a weird perspective. I don't know if I've ever played a game that puts the player into that perspective before, and it would throw me off so many times where I thought I was going to be aiming in the right spot, and then it would pivot and I'm like, oh shit, I am so far off from where I need to be aiming, and it would just do me in so many times. It took a while to get used to that.
Yeah, definitely me too, especially with like the way the stick always felt too sensitive for some reason.
Yeah.
Like, I couldn't get it to go exactly where it needed to go to aim at the one spot to shoot at. Although I found that on my the Switch Pro controller, that was a lot easier because I guess it just responds better. But like that was another thing I had with like the playing it on handheld, like just getting it to aim right properly at the, like it was easy to die a few times and then like, okay, well I'll just stand here and I know it'll end up there. And I'll just aim at that spot on the wall or the ceiling, and I'll know that's where he'll.
Well, and that's usually where I would get fucked. Is I'd think I had it lined up correctly, and then they'd come, and I'd be off by like just a little bit, and you got to start it all over again. You got to go hide. You got to get back into a position. Can really be a pain in the ass. There were a few of those, like especially early on, where it just felt like I was slamming my head against a wall, trying to like. You didn't know where to go yet. A lot of areas were still locked off. You're just running from this thing that's in constant pursuit. You don't really have the ability to hide so much from it yet. And Jesus Christ, it just... Even like going back and playing it this time, I was like, what the fuck am I supposed to be doing right now? And it would be like, oh, well, there's this one little door that you just didn't see yet that you're supposed to like go through, or you got to raise this water level to like access this little side hatch that sends you away from that area for a bit until you can come back and be better, which is great. That's all fun and good. It just, there were definitely points in the game where I didn't like how it locked me out of the rest of it until I'd completed these little areas. And that happens in these from time to time. That's just a normal part of playing a Metroid. But yeah, the whole thing opening up right near the end, that's when I started to have my most fun with it. And I didn't pull up I didn't pull up any guides or anything for it. I just did the old school way of, well, I'm just going to go through every room until the map says it's cleared. And until it says it's cleared, there's something here I haven't found yet. It took a lot longer, but it was fun.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, like I would generally do that, especially if I was going back through an area I'd already been through before anyway. But you know, I wanted to find these things.
Oh,
and
yeah.
No, it is weird. Like the difficulty curve is very non-standard. Like it's a lot harder at the beginning of the game, and then I would say like the second big difficulty spike is like 3/4 of the way through, and then it kind of tapers off again. Like it's very hard, and then it gets much easier, and then it gets a lot harder again, and then it gets easier again. It's at least for me, like it wasn't just like that usual kind of like, you know, you have more abilities, but then the bosses get a little harder, and you have more abilities, but the bosses get a little harder, and you kind of like balance that as you go. Like it definitely felt like I just kept getting better and better and better until I fought like a couple bosses, and then I was like, oh, I'm back to being crappy at this.
Yeah. It's more that the enemies had static tiers that they existed within, but your tier constantly would fluctuate from being S tier to like fucking C pretty quick.
Exactly.
Just depending on what area of the map you were in. I liked that though, because it again kind of brought the dread aspect of that into it. Like I guess the dread is more feeling underpowered, right?
Yeah, and they did a very good job of that at the beginning. Like like the first hour of the game, or hour for me at least, definitely felt like that.
It's just run.
Yeah, and then afterwards, after you have more abilities, and where running starts feeling good, as opposed to like running feels like a thing I have to do. Like when you start like being able to dash and you know, morph ball and all that jazz, where you feel like running is the fun part of the game, then it, you know, it stops being very dreadful. But yeah, not necessarily. Like I don't know. To be fair, I feel like this game doesn't get talked about as much. Like when it came out, I feel like there was a lot of talk about it, but then it kind of people stopped talking about it. Like I feel like we still talk about a lot of other Nintendo games that have come out on the Switch since then. Yeah. Like, you know, people still talk about Odyssey and Breath of the Wild and even like the 2D Marios and stuff. But like Metroid Dread is awesome. Like this game is maybe I don't know, it's up there. One of my favorite Nintendo games on the Switch, if not certainly one of my favorite Nintendo games, period. Like it's
one of my favorite Metroid games, like for sure now.
Oh yeah, I mean,
which is
I would say this
big.
This is probably my second favorite Metroid game at this point.
Oh, interesting.
I definitely still Super Metroid is going to be hard to
Sure. I'm surprised a Prime isn't up there though.
I don't like the Primes though.
You don't like the Primes?
I don't like the 3D Metroids that much.
Oh.
Like they just never felt fun for me.
Interesting. I really thought those were enjoyable. I enjoyed them. I know like a lot of people want their Metroid to stay 2D platform, and it had some elements of that. It was different.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of liked being in a first person Samus perspective.
No, I didn't dislike it. It's just the weakest thing about Metroid is the story. Like I think it is the most tedious, boring, dumb, uninteresting, underwritten but overexposed story ever.
Mm-hmm.
And like on a 2D Metroid, you can just mash through text walls, and then I'm fighting a big dinosaur. Great, let's get going.
Sure.
And then in Metroid Prime, it's like I'm what? I'm the scion of the Metroid that I absorbed and became the thing that like I just don't care. Like you need to.
And also, if you want to clear each room, you have to stop and scan all the little data pads and entries everywhere, which then like actually stop the game for a moment to show you like a like alien style computer rendering like breakdown where it's like do, 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 and the little dot matrix lines start gridding out the image for you. And I mean, I enjoyed it, but I could see your point of like it's a slow burn. Like things really slow down in that.
But also, like, there are so many other games that do that better. You know, like, I mean, granted, a lot of those have come out since Metroid Prime, but like, I don't know. Like, I think especially like we were talking about Alien Isolation does that really well. Like with the little notes and stuff you find and stuff like that. Same thing with like DSX does it, like the human, the newer ones, the Adam Jensen ones.
Yeah.
Like there's just so many more like games that do that, and I for whatever reason find the Metroid plot line to be. Yeah, I mean I love Samus as a character, my go-to character in Smash, but one of mine. The storyline is not something I find compelling at all, which is good because Dread kind of has one, but I honestly don't know what it was because I was mashing through all the text boxes. I was like, okay, you're a big golden bird guy. All right, we'll fight. This is fun.
Good Lord. You know, I was trying to go through and look quickly, and it's not going as quick as I was hoping for. I was curious to see what other games came out. There we go. This one's going to have it. Nintendo Life for the win. The same year as Metroid Dread, because Metroid Dread came out October 8th. I'll hit allow all. October 8th, 2021. Which, God, it doesn't feel like it's been out for 3 years. But, yeah shit.
Well, 2.5.
2.5. You're right. Ooh. Axiom Verge 2 came out that same year. That's
I still haven't played that.
That's another good one. Ender Lilies, so a lot of Metroidvanias that year.
But I mean, like, those are not first-person Nintendo games, right? Like, I feel like first-person, like, first-party Nintendo games.
Sure.
Like, they all generally kind of end up sitting in, unless it's like one of the spin-off-y games, like that one with Commander Toad or whatever the crap. They tend to end up, they have, like, loyal fan bases of people who talk about them all the time. Maybe I'm in the wrong parts of the internet, but like I still feel like I hear people talking about going back and playing Super Mario Odyssey for like the balloon rallies or whatever, and people playing, you know, other Nintendo games. I'm just like, why isn't this part of the pantheon of great Switch games?
It's
because it should be.
It should be, and it's really interesting. So just 2 weeks before Metroid Dread released, the Castlevania Advance Collection came out for the Switch. So maybe some people already were having their fill by that point.
I don't know.
Disco Elysium released, the Final Cut released for the Switch the day after, or like 2 days after Metroid Dread came out.
Right, but like my point isn't necessarily that it didn't get enough buzz.
Oh no, it got plenty.
Release. It's just that like it hasn't had the same lasting thing. Like there isn't like the it doesn't occupy the same amount of respect. It doesn't get the same amount of respect that other Nintendo games.
Well, and that's why I was trying to see what released around it. Is it might have been that the core fan base grabbed it, and they're always going to grab it, but the wider Nintendo Switch audience might have plucked a different game here or there out meant to go back to it and just didn't necessarily at the time.
I think it's also one of the more difficult Nintendo games. Maybe that's part of it.
It is.
Like, I don't know of a Nintendo Switch game made by Nintendo that is this difficult right off the bat.
Yeah,
really.
That's fair.
So, like, all the people who are like into the hard punishing games are busy with your Dark Soulses and your Elden Rings, and they're not, trying to play a Metroid game on the Switch. But I don't know. Everyone's played Elden Ring.
I'm about to play it more again for Shadow of the Erdtree. Getting ready for that.
Wow. No kidding.
Yep.
People playing Elden Ring.
I know. Wow. I mean, it's been a long time since I've played. So...
Long time to find long time.
I don't know, like 6 months. That's a long time for me. For touching a From Software game, like that's a long time.
You mean a post Dark Souls From Software game?
Yeah, that's fair. That's very fair. That's maybe something we should do for this, if we can find a way to successfully do it, is pull up pre-Dark Souls, pre-Demon Souls games.
Yeah, there was definitely
some Kingsfield or something.
I definitely remember. I have definitely rented a From Software game in the years before Demon Souls. In fact, I played Demon Souls before I didn't play any of the Dark Souls, and I was like, "Oh, this is a bad game. Someone made a bad game." Never mind.
I'm trying to enjoy Demon Souls. I have it on the PS5, and every once in a while, I'm like, "Let's just this is what we're gonna do these days off. We're gonna get really into Demon Souls," and I keep getting stuck in this one area on the ramparts. I'm like, I don't know how I'm supposed to fucking progress past all of this, but this is a nightmare. Like, I'm just ready to play something fun for a little while. Let's throw on Spider-Man. And then I don't go back to it for a while.
Let's just say that if it wasn't for the fact that Dark Souls 2 and 3, and to a certain extent 1, did so very, very well, there is no way in hell anyone's playing Demon Souls on a remaster for the PS5.
I mean, they even had to market it as the game that spawned the Dark Souls franchise.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's like no one wanted to watch THX 1138 until someone said, by the guy what made Star Wars. Like, oh, okay. All right, let's take a quick break, and then we'll come back with the news.
Ooh.
All right.
Okay.
Oh, wait, real quick. So Marcus said this last time, so let's make this a thing. So is this a way game or way lame?
Oh, this is way game for sure. This is way game.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yes.
This is the mark by which all way games will be leveled against.
No, I'm not even going to try to do the pun there. Yep. You fill it in yourselves. It's easy. It's obvious. But yeah.
All right.
I like that new standard. It's good.
Yeah. All right.
Yep.
Be right back.
Yep. This isn't going to be good for the recording. So we're just going to... It's a Hall's cough drop.
Well, we can wait a minute.
I'm just feeling a little hoarse, I'm still got, the full numbness from the allergy medicine.
Numbness?
Yeah, well, you know how, when you first wake up in the morning and, your body hasn't, turned on all the systems yet, so, you don't feel as intensely as you normally can. Everything feels muted, touch-wise, tactile-wise. I have that still going on. I'm pretty sure if I shut my eyes for 5 seconds, even standing, I'm out.
Do you have to work today?
No, I don't have to work today. I don't even have to be in tomorrow until late afternoon, so. Okay. Yeah. No, we're in kind of the slowish season right now still. We'll be doing a shutdown first week of April to reset the menu for spring, summer, and get some more cooking equipment out there, the smoker and all that. But, yeah, nice. Right now we're just kind of, this is going to be a chill month. before we officially come back then, I will say, do you have game news? Because I only have one thing, and it's more like a classic old man rant thing to talk about. And it's just about Warner Brothers games.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
Mm-hmm. I couldn't find anything like else that really stood out for the week to talk about. But if you did...
Well, there was something I wanted to talk about. I forgot what it was. Give me a second.
Mm-hmm. Why is Kotaku already have an article out about FF7 Rebirth's ending? Like, can we not? It's barely been out
for 2 weeks.
Barely 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It's a long ass game.
Yeah, I had such good success with going into the last like Final Fantasy thing completely unknowing what it, because I went in with knowing so little as I did. I was so pleasantly surprised by what actually happened in it. So I do think I want to avoid talking about that. I mean, just Helldivers 2, I guess, is still fucking killing it.
Oh yeah. People are getting more excited and obsessed with it. You know, it's really funny. One of our friends, Sig, that we play with, he is the one that Nick and him play like just an obscene amount of Tarkov together. And I'll come on every once in a while. I'm just like, I don't know how you guys play this to unwind at the end of a day. It's so stressful. There's no map. I have no clue where I'm supposed to be going. You have to have your headphones cranked up all the way to max so you can hear someone's footsteps, 100 feet away and know what sound they're on so that you know where they are in the map at that moment. It's like, this isn't fun, guys. We picked up Helldivers for him. And he's the whole time being like, this isn't fun. How are you guys enjoying this? We're just constantly overwhelmed and like fighting like to get out with tooth and nail. And sometimes we fail. And it's like, yeah, but the whole time we're laughing. Like it's a shit show the entire time.
Yeah, I think that's the point. I think that's what Helldivers kind of tapped into is they actually should probably come back.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. We've been back for a minute. No, but that is something like I think with Helldivers 2 that they tapped into that other games like it's like that the bullshit aspect, like where you're just fucking around with friends in a game and it's less about whether or not you are good at it and complete the objective and more about whether or not you had enough good time fun fucking around with your friends.
Yeah.
That I think is why Helldivers 2 is apparently like selling more each week than it did the last week.
Yeah, because just more people are hearing fun stories and be like, I want to experience that.
Exactly. And like, that's not something video games do. Like, you make all your like a huge chunk of your sales are in the first week or two. And then it drops.
You know what's a cool thing that's been happening lately, and it's something that used to be so common when playing a shooter with friends back in the day, but just ended up like endlessly giggling over team killing each other and then getting each other back with team kills. So the last match I played with them, our buddy Nick had a weapon that I wanted to try out. And he was like, well, bring a different gun for me. And then I'll like, you just kill me, take the weapon, and then I'll come back in. And we were like, yeah, this will be simple. First thing, like no problem. We tried to swap it. One of us got stuck up on like a cliff side, so we couldn't access the weapon from that side. Then we got swarmed almost immediately. So we're just constantly trying to, after like accidentally killing each other, quote unquote, like 5 times in the match, just all having fun, bullshitting, swarmed to the rest of the match down to like 1 recall life the whole time. And it's on like a 2-minute cooldown. It was a nightmare. We did not make it off that planet. Played for like 20 minutes, didn't complete almost any objective, had so much fun. Just really enjoyable.
Yeah, I think that there's nothing about like the way live service game design works that tells you that's a good idea. But at the same time, it's like what half the people who play multiplayer games play it for.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Mm-hmm. Well, hopefully they start to learn more about that, since it looks like everything's going live service these days.
Oh yeah.
I'm not even going to do my mouth trumpet for it, since you've already informed me you're putting a new stinger over my beautiful sound, but that's fine. Whatever.
Not yet. I haven't done it yet. If you...
News.
No,
Finally honed stinger, and you're just going to abandon it.
no, I haven't yet.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I could, if you convince me, I can leave it in there.
Listeners,
write in.
Yeah, please. Please, actually. No, so, I mean, my little bit here, I know you've got some stuff as well, but it's just about Warner Brothers wanting to move more towards live service after the massive success of Suicide Squad.
Which is not a live service?
No.
Apparently not.
Seemingly not.
Apparently having most of the gameplay be multiplayer dependent does not mean it's
does
a live
not
service
count.
Game, I guess. Yeah.
So they're going to be focusing a lot more on free-to-play, mobile, and live service. Found this article that was just breaking all of that down, and I don't know. I'm not sure if that's the right way for a company like Warner Brothers to go. Their thought is, since they have all of this IP, they can drop some live service free-to-play game with a store on there, use some big name IP to get players' attention, and then roll out content constantly to that to keep the base going. I just don't feel they're convinced that that's how people want to play games. Everyone wants to play games where they're interacting with other players constantly. And that's a lot of people. I don't like interacting with other players in most games. And especially if I'm getting off work, I just want to unwind usually with just a single player game that I can enjoy myself.
Or you want to interact with your friends.
Or specifically my friends instead of the whole world. Yeah.
Well, also, I think this is just another step in the wrong direction for Warner Brothers and DC in general. They feel like they are trapped in business models that seemed smart 5-10 years ago.
Yep.
The streaming service, I don't know how they managed to make HBO Max thing not work properly. Then they were just making movies to write them off, and they haven't they have some of the biggest superhero IP in the world, and they keep just what if we did 13 Batman comic books and nothing else? They seem to have no idea what they're doing. And it's every time you hear I'm just waiting for them to be actually, we're canceling comic books. We're going full on into procedurally generated NFT storybooks or some horseshit. There's just...
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if they try one already. If it's already out there and we just missed it. They did it under some small label.
I don't know,
but
man. It's just...
The thing that irked me the most was it was one of the executives talking in an interview, and they were talking about picture this, Hogwarts Legacy, but perpetual live service. It's I don't think you know what you mean when you say this. You just saw the sales numbers for a game, and then you went, what if the sales numbers could be forever? That's what they're looking at.
All the words.
Yes.
Just say all the words.
Yes. It's so uninspired. It sounds so boring.
Yeah, I think Space Jam 2 is the indicator for how off the mark Warner Brothers is right now, where they're oh, everyone just loves Warner Brothers. Our RP is great, so we can just stick everything into Space Jam 2. Never mind the Looney Tunes. We're gonna add the Droogs and
that one was pretty wild.
The Crow or whatever the crap. They're just none of this makes a goddamn lick of sense.
No.
Even when they did that Smash clone fighter thing, they were okay, we'll have Game of Thrones fighting the Tasmanian Devil.
I think I completely missed that one. I didn't even know that was a game. I was is he talking about the Injustice series? Those are fun, but
It was called, was it Multiverses, I think?
Oh, that one. Yeah, that
Like,
went into my brain and
how-
immediately out.
You have to be like really high on your own supply to think like that is a smart idea. Like it only works in like a complete ironic postmodern way where like we don't have like childhoods don't end and also don't begin. We're just trapped in perpetual childhood. So like, yeah, the Terminator and Cat Dog can hang out and murder each other. Why not? But like that's not what any of this looks
Well, I think some of that too comes to like nostalgia only works if the property
goes away.
Well, if it goes
time.
away and the property was nurtured during its existence, like if the property was well taken care of and built a nice loyal fan base that is still engaging with the property even though it's gone away, right? Hasn't been officially touched for a while. I think that's when nostalgia works at its best. Like a Metroid Dread, where it had been a while since we'd gotten a nice 2D Metroid game. I think if they'd just been pumping those out, every 2 to 3 years, it's not going to hit the same.
That's true. If there had been like 3 Metroid fusions between, it's a good point. It's a good point.
I have them occasionally.
No, but I don't know. I feel like there's, I don't know what the heck Warner Brothers is doing. They don't even have the Lord of the Rings license anymore. So like,
No.
I don't even know. Like their big things are Harry Potter and Batman right now. And yeah, you can make Lego Batman movies till the end of time, or games and movies, and those will probably still sell well.
Uh-huh.
But I don't know what a Lego Batman live service game would look like.
Do we see a world where you can use the Flu fast travel system in Hogsmeade to travel into a place in Arkham at some point? Is this their grand scheme?
Yeah, Harry Potter gets abducted by Doctor Strange and is
Hugo Strange.
Trapped.
We're talking about specifically Hugo Strange.
Specifically. Yeah.
Not the other one.
And is trapped in Arkham, and he has to convince everyone of his own sanity because he's like, "No, I'm a wizard," and everyone's like, "No, you're an insane person."
Mm-hmm.
And then, actually, that's good. Let's do that.
Okay, I like that one actually. Hey, Warner Brothers, we got a pitch for you. We'll do it on spec. Huh. Yeah, it feels hollow. I mean, I'm not saying that live service can't be good. I like a live service game. Sea of Thieves is still...
Or they can't make money. I mean, what they're looking at is Fortnite, and Fortnite's
That's it.
making money hand over fist, and also they're like, oh, now it'll have all the Marvel and Disney IP, and, DC still thinks that they're like the rival of Marvel and all that, so they have to try and keep up with
Fortnite,
that.
though, Fortnite's a weird exception to the rule, I think, because Fortnite has never been one specific game either.
True.
It started as a tower defense, then it was like a weird builder shooter. Now it's got like a campaign shooter mode that without building that is more popular with people with older brains like myself that can't build a staircase and seal themselves in a room while also shooting 3 different people. Like that's just not how my brain works. But so I think people are making mistakes if they're trying to model themselves off of what Fortnite currently is or has been, because it's always been changing. And if that's your idea of a live service game, then that's cool. That's fun. If it's a game that you're not afraid to like drastically turn on its head because that's the way the player base wants to play, then awesome. That's not what they're talking about. They're talking about just a new store, new microtransactions, hollow storylines with IP tie-ins from other companies or their own products. It's empty.
No, I mean Fortnite. The reason why Fortnite's been so successful is because it is adaptive. Like you said, it started off like I played Fortnite in beta. It was nothing like what it turned out to be, and they were like, "Hey, look, PUBG exists. Let's do that." And then they ate PUBG's lunch for the rest of the school year.
Yeah,
and you can't you have to be willing to adapt, and literally nothing that Warner Brothers has ever done has been adaptive.
No.
They are that is their weakest strength by far.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think some of their issue is that they can rest on the laurels of their own IP. So they know if they put X amount of money and time into one product, they will get X amount of return on their investment. And that's as far as the executive side goes.
Yeah.
The corporate side, that's all they care about. I mean, you've still got your development studio that wants to make a good game, but they're being told in very certain terms, this is the type of game you're going to make.
But also, like, that IP is not as strong as you think it is. Like, you know, like, Bugs Bunny is not the draw it was 40 years ago. Like, there aren't, like Harry Potter, even, we've seen its clout diminish significantly recently.
Yeah.
And like I said, they don't have the rights to Lord of the Rings stuff anymore, unless it's, I think they do if it's based specifically on the films now, but I don't know.
I guess I could see that. But most of
that's all a different group now, so I mean they could license the rights back, but it doesn't matter. Like they don't have that anymore. Everyone is a little fatigued by superheroes, and the only superhero video game that they've ever made work is Batman. And frankly, I don't know what there's left to do with Batman. They've made Lego Batman, they've made Scary Batman, they've made Funny Batman, they've made Fighty Batman, they've made Detective Batman.
Yep.
There isn't really like anywhere else to go with Batman.
There's no new territory. I don't even want to say mechanically, but design wise to go with the Arkham games. But I'm still holding out for Arkham Beyond. Like, I want Arkham Beyond. I want a Gotham Beyond setting, or New Gotham, I think is what they call that. That would be like, that's the penultimate one for me. Do that. I'd be very happy. And then
we're more likely to see a Spider-Man 2099 before we are to see a Batman Beyond.
Right, and I'm fine with that, as long as that means that Terry McGinnis is coming into the game universe at some point.
I don't know. I like Spider-Man 2099.
I do too.
I can't remember his name.
It's
Miguel.
Yep.
Something.
Yep.
Miguel Spider-Man.
It's a good one. Fuck.
God. Okay.
It'll come to me. Thank you.
His name is Miguel O'Hara. Thank you.
I wouldn't have gotten that.
I knew it was something that didn't quite match the ethnicity of the first name, but I didn't remember what it was.
Yeah. I don't know. It's also kind of weird because O'Hara, McGinnis, like there's this weird like Irish, Scottish,
Future
like
Irish.
Yeah. Like, did they slowly take over the world?
I do wonder which came first, because I feel like Spider-Man 2099, the comic book, came before Batman Beyond, but certainly Batman Beyond had more reach than Spider-Man 2099.
Yeah, because Spider-Man 2099 also, like, isn't he? I haven't read as much or like interacted as much with the IP, but isn't he like some soldier, like Black Ops soldier or something of that nature? Like he's some like special trained task force like member.
In what I've read, I haven't read like the OG early 90s stuff. Mostly I've read from like the late 90s and on. But like he's just like Spider-Man. Like he's day by day he works for Nameless Megacorp, and by night he fights the evil corporations of cyber New York. But he could have started out that way, and I haven't actually seen the new Beyond Spider-Verse thing. So, and by new I mean the one that came out a year ago.
Very good.
I'm sure it is. The first one was amazing, so I'm sure the second one's also very good. I just, you know me, I have to watch. I'm too busy watching all 1,275 episodes of Pokemon the anime, so I can't be watching good things.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. He's Miguel O'Hara, an Irish-Mexican geneticist living in Nueva York, renamed New York City in 2099. There you go. Voiced by Oscar Isaac.
In the show?
In the Across the Spider-Verse thing.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
He's a busy guy, that Oscar Isaac.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know why. For some reason, I thought he was a militia member or some kind of soldier before that had like been put into an experiment to turn him into one. I feel like that was a storyline.
It could have been. I don't remember. I mean, I am by no means like world's #1 Spider-Man fan, but I don't think I've ever read any Spider version who does that. They're usually if there's something, they're like detectives or
right.
Well, detectives. That seems to be the big one. When you're not a reporter, you're
or a scientist. You're a reporter, a scientist, or a detective. Yes,
or all three.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on. One other bit of news I had is that all the Command and Conquer games are on Steam right now. I don't know if this will be the case when this episode goes live, but they're very cheap, like $1 or $2 for almost all.
Oh
of them
shit!
Right, and this has led to some speculation by fans that this means that there are more Command and Conquer remasters coming down the pike, and that they will start removing the original ones off of marketplaces.
Oh,
as these companies are wont to do these days.
Okay.
Which, on one hand, I wouldn't mind a remaster of Red Alert 2 by any means, but I don't know that I don't like it when they remove the originals when they remaster stuff. I think especially when you have to be very assured of yourself that you're going to do a better job than the original one was, and also that there's no reason to do that. Really, there's from a business sense, you have to be very sure.
I just feel like
how well this is going to do.
The Command and Conquer games, like, I don't know where they could go with them, even in doing remakes that would feel like something different than what we already have on the market new currently. Unless they like really leaned into the quirkiness of them, like it's still like grainy QuickTime movies, like playing and like if they kept it like that, like this odd mishmash of media, then I think it would work. But
I think that's something that I think in general we're seeing an acceptance towards camp and silliness in general culture, just as a thing. Like you see movies nowadays that are winning Oscars that aren't super serious and dark. Like Everything Everywhere All at Once.
I was going to say, you talking about Hot Dog Fingers?
Yeah, but also like in general, like the two most beloved people in Western culture right now are like Guy Fieri and Dolly Parton. Like we're okay with camp and silly now. And maybe that means we can go back and get some more Tim Curry as General whatever shouting into our faces.
He's so good.
I would love that. But also, like, the RTS market just isn't. I mean, it's very healthy, but only for very specific games. If it's not StarCraft and it's not Age of Empires 2, then there just isn't. Like, Age of Empires 2 is probably what you want to model yourself after.
Sure.
Like, they kept the core mechanics. They kept everything. Like, they were very attentive. The people who remastered it were people who had been fans and playing this game for decades. And when they came back and made the definitive edition, like, they knew what fans of the series wanted, and they kept everything as close to what it was originally, but at the same time, like, polishing up and making it work for modern, like, internet servers and giving them the ability to add more stuff and all that jazz. So, like, I think that if you were to, like, do remasters of Command and Conquer, that would be what I would think he would aim towards doing. Or it could just be that they just release them all in one big pack where they're just widescreen compatible and they, let people make their own lobbies for multiplayer.
I mean, that would be the better one for me personally. Yeah. That's what I'd prefer. But yeah, I could see it going both ways. I guess, I don't know. RTS in general, I think it maybe is time for a bit of a shake up to them. There's a few games that have been trying to change the flow of them a bit, but I haven't seen anything where it's like, oh shit, this is almost like a new genre of game. Like we're due
that's
for
basically, I mean, what killed the RTS was MOBAs, right?
Yeah.
Like, everyone's like, oh, well, this is much more fun than Warcraft 3. And then that became the genre for esports for a decade.
Yeah.
You know, if it still kind of is. So, you know, like, how do you, you know, in Pokemon terms, like RTS done evolved into MOBA. Like, you can't unevolve that.
I mean, I feel like there's maybe a different stone that you could put with it that would cause it to branch to a different type of evolution, but, you know, I'm not sure what that looks like yet. I just, the base of the genre, the bones of it are so good that I could see it being used in a lot of other things. It's just, I don't know. I've gotten burnt out on RTSs.
Yeah, like I still am kind of burnt out on RTSs because I used to play them all the time back in the day. Like I even got the the remastered Homeworld games, and I was like, oh, I can't wait to play this. And I was like, oh, actually, I can wait to play this.
Yeah.
I'm kind of, this isn't something I necessarily want to come back to, but I want to be able to come back to them. Yeah. I don't know. Like I'd love to see a remaster of Galaxy at War, which I know. I mean, if they're remastering Battlefront, maybe we can get a remastered Galaxy at War. That'd be amazing.
Really good. That would be
that
really
was
fun.
Great RTS.
Yeah, it was.
And actually, when we went back and played freaking Dawn of War, speaking of which, that felt like sliding right back into an old warm bath.
Yeah, I mean, it held up. Like
not an old warm bath, but
no, old but surprisingly still warm bath.
Yeah,
like unsettlingly still warm bath. Yes. Where that one was really cool, and we talked about it in that episode. But going back and being like, oh, holy shit, like this is where all the mechanics came from. Everything is exactly as it should be in this game. Outside of some scrolling around, like navigating the map issues, you know, those got fixed in later games, but everything's there right off the bat. Yeah, and it's so fun.
Unlike Age of Mythology, which we also played for this podcast, where I'm like, this is like going back in time. This is like going back to before cell phones, and then also realizing that you have a phone bill you have to pay for. Like that's the other thing people forget about, like how annoying it was to have to like use a landline. You also were just getting shafted constantly by the phone companies. Like you think, like, imagine if you're like phone, you were paying sometimes like 10% of your monthly income on fucking phone.
I remember I wasn't allowed to call friends until I think it was 7:00 at night. I could make phone calls to friends, and you had like a free period on your landline for like minutes, because technically we lived in like a very rural area, so even though we all went to the same school, we were in different counties from each other technically, and all of those were like out of county rates applied. It was ridiculous.
I mean, you knew you had rich friends when they had multiple phone lines in their house.
We had 2 phone lines, but it's because my dad had been pseudo fired by the aerospace company he was working for at the time. And it was more like, we're going to let your contract run up and you're going to work from home. So we're going to give you this phone line. And it would only ring like once or twice a day, and you just see him in a robe and underwear, like sprint to the office because he just wanted something to do.
Well, that was also like the other thing is like when you started seeing multiple phone lines is when like the internet became a thing, where it was just like you needed to have another phone line because it was so annoying to like have to like, you know, like I'd be on the internet and my sister would be yelling at me because she was expecting a call from her friend, and she'd want me sitting there on the internet while the phone call wouldn't go.
Well, yeah, because it's not like it would just redirect to the voice message box or anything. It would just busy signal. You can't reach that. That line is engaged.
Yeah, I'm assuming you actually had voicemail too. Yeah. Like it was, you know.
Oh, I mean by voicemail, I mean a device next to the phone jacked through it that has a tape in it. A reel-to-reel tape. Yes. Good God.
Well, not really.
Well, it is, but like in a cassette. It's still
cassette.
Reel-to-reel, technically.
Well, no, I mean, generally speaking, people say reel-to-reel when they mean tape.
I know, I just wanted to feel even older than I really am.
Like I got like one of those big like reel-to-reel things next to phone.
You only can listen to your messages while smoking in a very dimly lit yellow room, like dingy yellow light.
Yeah, It overheats after it's been running for more than 5 minutes.
Yeah. I was specifically thinking of like one of the chandelier lighting systems from like a Pizza Hut in the 80s.
Oh,
like it's
God.
caked
Remember,
with like 2 inches of dust on it.
And they all had the same fake plants up there.
Yeah.
Like every buffet
Yeah.
always had that like they had that little shelf way up there with like a bunch of fake plants. And just they all had the same ones. It's like there's no light there. We know those are fake. Why we can't even see those fuckers.
So good.
And they all had them too.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. Fake plants have come a long way, man. Sometimes I have to like get on them and touch them, and even then I'm like, I gotta touch this a little bit. Like I gotta look at the bark of it. I gotta look at the like right near the root ball of this thing. Get in there and really figure it out.
I mean, we had a fake ficus that I thought for years was real.
You know what? I
time.
actually was looking up fake ficuses right now because they're the ones that specifically are getting really good at tricking people.
Yeah, I think it's just that ficuses are kind of plasticky to begin with. So.
Yeah, definitely. That's funny.
I don't actually have a quiz.
I was going to say, this is a video game podcast, though, right? That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, I mean,
It was.
If I start
derail.
talking about Red Alert being on sale on Steam, we will eventually talk about ficuses.
Yeah.
This is
That's an A, B to C.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't actually have a quiz this week.
Oh.
Unfortunately, I'm sorry.
I'll forgive you.
I just couldn't think of anything. The thing is, it's like I don't want to force it and just have like a dumb quiz.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't think of anything this week. So.
No, that's fair. I mean, I gave you one a while back, but the quiz last week is very in relation to the other one.
Yeah, I still have that one on the back burner, but I want it to be, like I said, I was going to do it for a Marcus up, and then I ended up doing a different one. So it was pertinent. So that is one that will come out eventually. When you're least expecting it.
Oh, so I like that.
You don't know what the quiz is. Like right now. No, I'm joking.
Oh, shit. Pop quiz.
So what have you been playing this week?
Oh, that's a great question.
Pop quiz.
A lot of things, actually. I've been dipping my toes into like a couple different games, but I'm not ready to fully talk about it yet. But I have been playing Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. It's fun.
Cool.
I've got a lot of complaints, but I'm enjoying it. Mm-hmm. All of the complaints are combat based, but that's just me not liking the direction Final Fantasy games have been going with their combat. I still haven't like fully enjoyed 16. Like I had to give myself a break from 16 because it just felt so repetitive and so boring. Doing a lot of button mash fighting on it. And it wasn't that I'm not good at the combat. It's just like, no, the way to play the combat, it feels very button mashy.
I found that, speaking for the least remake or whatever the first one was, I played it all the way through very button mashy, and I didn't like it. And then I played the Yuffie DLC, and I approached it very differently, and I tried not to button mash at all, and just kind of be more precise and whatever about it. And I found it a lot more fun. Mm-hmm. So I'm not saying that's necessarily the case for this game, but maybe when I play it eventually, whenever that happens, I'm going to try and not be too button mashy about it.
Yeah, and maybe I need to change the combat style to more of a timed system instead of the active. It's not really active versus time battle system. It's still that slow down time where you choose your options. Yeah. But I don't know, something that makes it feel a little more tactical might be the way I want to try to engage with it. I mean, you can't get away from, the action combat mechanics themselves. It's just there. But
I mean, having played the Like a Dragon, the turn-based ones, there's a very real option path to go for a 3D open world turn-based combat system. You could just steal that. You don't have to keep doing your weird thing that you keep trying to do, Final Fantasy. Just steal this.
Mm-hmm.
It's right there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I wouldn't be upset.
Yeah, I don't know. They're in an awkward phase right now. I mean, you can tell by them trying to do this Final Fantasy VII remake. I know people have been like telling them for years that they have to do it. So it makes sense that they finally did it, but at the same time, it also...
Well, it's not really a remake. It's more like a alternate universe version.
It is.
Spoilers.
It is. But also, I don't know. I just get this feeling like they don't know what to do with their IP right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Is Final Fantasy has never been an actual IP. Until Final Fantasy VII, they weren't an IP. Square was not an IP company.
Yeah.
You know? Like, every Final Fantasy jettisoned all of the characters and setting for the next one.
Yeah.
And they still do that.
I mean, except for
it's just
Sid, but Sid's not like a recurring character. It's just a nod.
Yeah, it's just a name, really. And they're not even...
Yeah.
They're very different characters in most games. So, like, there isn't really, like, IP per se. They have to rely on making good RPGs, which is what they did. They have done. They sometimes do. So, like, I think with 7, like, I think it was, again, with Remake, it was so clever how they managed to, like, walk that tightrope between being what the fans want and what, like, a company that wants to make new games does. Whether or not that was necessarily... I don't know that either option would have been good. Like, I don't think that the game that fans wanted would have been a great game. I don't think that like, the newer Square Enix combat games are very good either. But, like, the way they managed to just thread the needle was impressive.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But I look forward to seeing. Like, it'll depend a lot on where the story goes, because that is where I'm mostly invested in Final Fantasy Rebirth. I will admit that I think I, even midway through Final Fantasy Remake, knocked the difficulty down just so I could
enjoy
get through the battles
story
faster. Yeah, and the story was fun. Like, I loved what they did with the wall market sequence and all that jazz in Remake. And I hope they keep that silliness up when we get to, like, Costa del Sol and all that jazz. But I don't even know if it's in this game, because I have been keeping complete radio silence about it, so I don't even know.
Yeah. Gosh, now you got me thinking of them using more of like a dragon battle system, turn-based battle system for a Final Fantasy. That would be a real fun thing. Or even, just hear me out here, but it's kind of within the same style of battle system, Anachronox, like bringing that back here. But
I don't even know if they know who owns that now.
No.
Because everything's been sold.
I know.
And
but it's the
flipped
same
around
idea
and
where
ever-
you're playing with placement of characters a lot during the battle. That could be something fun and fresh while keeping it turn-based. I don't know. Just something different than making it feel like every other video game that's out there right now.
Yeah, like, it feels like they were trying to, like, is it a Kingdom Hearts combat system? No, is it? But we need to have all these RPG mechanics, so I don't know.
Yeah.
I think maybe it would be even better if they just went full Kingdom Hearts and just made it like a smashy button thing. But again, I haven't played the new one, so I don't know.
Yeah, fair. And I haven't played enough to be more critical of it in a positive or negative way, because I'm only into, I think, the beginning of the 3rd chapter. It's I'm just taking my time with it, trying to explore every little nook and cranny. But yeah,
Sounds like fun.
it's fun. I am enjoying it. It's just the combat system is I don't know, just not my cup of tea.
Any other? You said you're playing other stuff this week. So, but Helldivers 2.
Helldivers
and
2,
this.
Dark Forces Remaster, which we talked a little bit up front. I don't know if it'll make it into the cut or not, so I can talk about it some more. But I don't know, I'm halfway through it. I probably could have finished the whole thing in a sitting, but I want to give it time. I don't want to play through it too quickly. It's a widescreen Dark Forces. It's Dark Forces in widescreen. That's really it. And
thinking about it, I think we probably will leave the beginning stuff in because we segued into
Yeah.
stuff from there.
Yeah.
But like my one hope for this, like I haven't played it, and I don't know what my response will be to it when I do play it. But I do know that the Kyle Katarn games that come after that, I would really like to revisit.
Outcast. Like specifically Outcast.
Or Jedi Academy.
Jedi Academy's
like that.
Oh, Jedi Academy is actually. Is that the one with the multiplayer battles? Where you could go.
I think
that was
so.
That was whichever one you could do multiplayer battles where you had
could
different
do
stances, and it's that guard system where you've got to move into different little areas, close, mid, and long range pointing systems and like quadrants. That was incredible.
No, that was like the best.
Yes, like bring that back
combat
into
ever.
a game. I know games like Kingdom Come Deliverance, as shitty as it is, like they tried to do that with their combat system. It didn't really work out, but something about those lightsaber combats were just so fucking fun. One of the last times I used to like really get into just like rando multiplayer matches and play with people.
Yeah. And there were fun games to begin with, just in the side. And, the more, like, I feel like, just in general with Star Wars, and we're going to talk about more of Star Wars next week. But,
after
the big, the week after the big Disney, takeover, like they said all this stuff isn't canon anymore. We're doing our own thing. And it's kind of gotten to the point where I think they've kind of gotten a little lazy with it. Like, not that to the benefit of Legends fans, because I think they're just kind of like, okay, well, you can just take this from Legends.
There's all the stuff that is there, like decades of
exactly.
world building and lore that they can just pluck and pick and choose, but in a smart way for themselves.
Exactly.
Like, I don't think they ever actually know what they're going to do. Like, I don't think they have a real solid plan for like Marvel Phase 4 or whatever like phase they're going to be on next. I think somehow this whole time, by the seat of their pants, they've kind of made it work and make it look like they knew what they were doing the whole time. And I think they can pull that off even better with Star Wars because they've got such this deep back catalog of amazing, like, just grab some Timothy Zahn shit. Like, even that alone, like, you're good to go.
They have.
Yeah,
obviously.
R.A. Salvatore, Timothy Zahn, Michael Stackpole, like, grab these. No, I want my Corran Horn in there. Get my Eye of Jedi, like a Star Wars story.
No, I mean,
going.
I'm not against, like, I just mean, like, I agree. Like, there's a ton. I just, maybe specifically those authors are not necessarily my favorite of the Expanded Universe authors.
That's fair.
But, like, in general, I agree. Like, there's just, like, if you guys, like, if they have to keep this multimedia thing going. They have to keep making comics. They have to keep making movies. They have to keep making video games. They have to keep making novels, so, like, why not just steal, like, just take stuff that's already been done? So,
and they don't have to necessarily stick to it. Like, they can pick and pull and go like, well, this character existed, but now there's a little tweak to them. Like, they're a little different now. And that's probably what Mara Jade's going to be if they ever bring her into the films or shows of any kind. It's just going to be a little tweak.
Like, if they can manage to make an entire, like, series out of a few months of Obi-Wan Kenobi's life in the desert, then I'm sure they could find some way to have Luke and Mara meet up in between the movies. I liked some of it, but it was just, I think, like, and I will talk about this in 2 weeks or so. But the Inquisitor design is very good for a Saturday morning cartoon. It does not carry over well into real life. It is very hard for me to take the Inquisitor seriously in live action or in video games that aren't cartoony.
Yeah.
Because they look like evil Power Rangers, and it is very hard for me to be like, that is intimidating. And also there was
interesting.
They just cut a lot of corners with Obi-Wan.
Oh yeah, I think that's a really interesting thing, and yeah, we are going to be talking about it more in length. But I think Star Wars kind of found its stride, visual style wise, with like a Clone Wars or Rebels or one of those. Like, it fits perfectly in that style of art for the stories they're trying to tell.
Well, I think that that art style and all that stuff fits perfectly there. And then the Mandalorian and Andor, they have
where it's more
that
grounded in
style.
reality.
And
yes.
Exactly. And like it's hard to make those two mesh.
Yep.
I think like you saw Ahsoka kind of do it okay, where they managed to get some of the Rebels characters into Ahsoka, and it could have been worse.
Absolutely.
And then, but you have to really work at it, and some of those ones.
It's just more of my complaint. Like the first Iron Man movie was really solid because a lot of the stuff he's doing, like, yeah, he's got some energy pew-pews he's using, but it's missiles and bullets and things that look real, like tangible robotic things. And then the later into the Marvel Cinematic Universe you get, it's just, are you ready for 3 hours of CGI? And it's like, well, this doesn't feel I know I've complained about this before. And I think Star Wars has that same issue where the less grounded it is, the more the art style needs to shift towards animated for me to
or it needs to be more stylized.
Yes. For me to have my attention held.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think that's not something that, I mean, we talk about that with the too much CGI in the Marvel movies, and I think that's not unfair. But I think that's also a problem you had in the comics, where if you were a lazy writer, you would just kind of have people punching each other for whatever, or you just have them shooting rays of energy at it, which, like, as much as I actually don't think Marvel's is that bad of a movie, there is a lot of scenes of people just shooting rays of energy.
I can picture a couple where it's just a 2-page splash where the word "vroom," like of some weird like slorp sound like goes across the entire thing.
There's so many of those things where like you know the writer. Yeah, there's so many of those things where you know like the writer's like, this is going to be like my big moment, but then it's like in an event series of like 50 issues, and every writer in that event series is like, we're going to have the big like kapow moment. You're like, okay, another big double spread of kapow.
I mean, that is where manga also stands out much better with it, because it's traditionally in a black and white style. Like even if you want some 2-page like energy blast thing, you got to get really detailed with the shadows then. And that, it always looks cool in that way.
I mean, I think it depends a lot on the artist.
Well, that's true.
Like, I don't think that even in Western comics, there are guys who can do that really well. Like, I think, Walter Simonson has never done a Crack-a-Thum that has not been awesome. And, Daniel Warren Johnson's very good at it too. But like, there are also, my point is that like you can have CGI that's bad and lazy, and you can have really fun and interesting CGI. Like, I think that even though Doctor Strange isn't maybe like the best, like the first one specifically of the Marvel movies, I think that it used CGI to do something really interesting and something you couldn't do with like CGI should not, like, CGI is great, and the fact that you can make like effects you could make practically very, very cheaply and quickly, relatively speaking. Although nowadays, who knows if that's actually cheaper anymore. But like where I think CGI should be used at its best is when it's doing stuff that you can't do in anything else. And having like those, what's that movie? The fucking Christopher Nolan dream movie.
Inception.
Like having those Inception like warping things going on in Doctor Strange, and like the weird like way thing, like
for
you
the
couldn't
mirror,
do that with
the mirror
practical
world
effects.
Or whatever they call it. Yeah, the mirror dimension. Yeah.
That was really
and
cool.
Like, you can't do that I mean, maybe someone insane could figure out how to do a practical. I mean, I guess it would just literally be overlaying tons of shots. It would just take an insane amount of work to make it look.
Or like a lot of mirrors.
Yeah, I mean, it would have to be something like that. I don't know. That's actually kind of neat. Like, I kind of would like to see someone try to do like a full redo of like Doctor Strange, but with all practical effects. Like, even opening a portal is like overlaid cuts of these stop motions. Like, I don't know. I just really enjoy practical effect, and it's what holds up the most. It's why I enjoyed The Mandalorian so much, was because they were like, there's going to be aliens. They're going to be practical.
Well, did I tell you this? This is something I've heard from a podcaster who's a writer of movies. So it may not be true, but it could be true. Werner Herzog is in The Mandalorian. He's like one of the bad guys in the first season, and Jon Favreau has him there, and they do the scene where they have the baby Grogu, like the puppet, in the bassinet, and he goes, "Okay, well we did that scene, so now we're gonna reshoot this without the puppet, because in case we decide to go back and do CGI instead, like." And then Werner Herzog's like, "You sir are a coward." and Jon Favreau's just like, "Okay, I guess we're doing the puppet."
Yep.
And I think and that's the other thing is like, even if you're not doing puppets, like Star Wars looks best when you make things look like they could be puppets.
Yeah.
Like I think that's the Alien style that works best.
Yeah.
And anyway, we are.
We've like somehow gone back into whoa, that's cool comic book podcast.
So yeah, the only thing I've been playing this week, the new Crusader Kings DLC came out. And I don't know what it is that like at Paradox that they've been kind of letting me down with their DLC and other games, but Crusader Kings continues to kill it. Like this one adds a lot of systems that they layer on top of the existing systems. They feel natural. They don't complicate things, but they also like give you something else to do. They make sense for like the simulation of a medieval feudal society. They add more complexity without it being like overwhelming. I think they're well fleshed out for the amount of money you spend, so to speak, which has been a problem with Paradox DLC for years now, where you're getting an inconsistent amount of content for what you pay for. But yeah, it adds like a plague system. It adds more healthcare stuff you have to worry about. You have to worry about like there's a more in-depth legitimacy system. Like whereas before it was like the legitimacy of your rule was mostly based on how much your subjects just liked you or liked the previous person, and then this one like makes it more in-depth where there's like laws that make your like different rulership more legitimate, like how long your dynasty's been there, all that stuff, like it adds to legitimacy of your rule and whether or not you have to deal with rebellions and stuff. Because it used to be just like, oh, here's a new king, guess what, no one likes him, here's a rebellion. And that was fun sometimes, but I like that they're trying to make that a little bit more in depth,
that the lineage matters, like the legacy left behind actually has more of an impact.
And also, like, different cultures and different societies are going to have different ways of looking at legitimacy rather than just everyone kind of like how much they like someone.
Yeah, the value system. Like, is it a positive or a negative value? Yeah,
that too. And like the other thing is, the one thing I will say is the one mechanic I really want is like a redo of the way like your bishops are appointed, because like papal investiture was in place by this point in the history, although you can play from earlier points before papal investiture was as widely adopted, but in reality it wasn't pure papal investiture. You frequently had lords putting their sons in bishoprics and stuff like that. Like it was a much more complex system as far as like getting power within the church by having your family members become members of the church and bishops and cardinals and that sort of thing. So I would like that system to get more fleshed out. They released their DLC and like season passes. So you can buy like all of them even before they've all come out at a little bit of a discount, which has worked out well for me so far. Like this is the third year of the season pass, so to speak, and the first two were definitely worth the money. So like the next two expansions won't add this. They will add a lot of really interesting stuff. One's going to add like a way for you to play as an adventurer without having like a landed area, without you being like a feudal lord over a specific realm and stuff like that, which is very interesting. I wonder how that'll be. And the other one is going to add a lot more depth to, I think, the Byzantine empire and like the way that would work specific to itself. So I'm really looking forward to this. It's
nice.
It's nice to have a game that is like it seems to be pretty well taken care of. Like a lot of other games, like especially a lot of other Paradox games, like they lose interest, or they just kind of take advantage of the player base and start like cutting corners with the patches, or they just kind of price gouge you and stuff. I'm mostly talking about Stellaris, and to a lesser extent Europa Universalis, but I hope that they apply the Crusader Kings model to all their games. Oh, incidentally, Stellaris recently has started offering a subscription to the DLC, which is something that Crusader Kings 2 did a little while before Crusader Kings 3 was announced, where instead of having to buy all the DLC, you can pay X amount a month to have access to all the DLC, which is not a terrible idea. No. As long as you remember to cancel your subscription after you're done playing. But what this kind of signals to me is that maybe they're wrapping up Stellaris support, and that they might start working on Stellaris 2, I would hope. So fingers crossed that's what's going on.
That'd be really cool. I mean, I'm sure they're doing it, but yeah.
Well, I don't know. It took them forever to do Victoria 3, and everyone wanted Victoria 3 for years, and then Victoria 3 was just kind of okay. So, not that it's bad.
Right.
It's just okay.
Yeah.
So that's it. I think that's all we got to
I
say
think
today.
so.
Yeah. If you liked this, you should leave a review and rate it on your podcasting listening
thumbs ups or stars or whatever.
Yeah. Send us an email at thesavestatepodcast@gmail.com. You can get at us at the Save State Pod on Blue Sky.
Yes.
Yep. And then, well, that's it right now, right? Oh, there's the YouTube channel.
There's the YouTube.
You can always listen to these episodes on YouTube. Content will come out soonish as other projects kind of wind their way into existence. There's a lot of stuff that's like 20% done right now.
Yeah. But that's all right. Good things come to those who wait.
Indeed.
Which is something that Scott's been saying constantly around the office. He just will walk in sometimes and say it and then stare at me. And then he walks away. And he said it 20 times, and we haven't actually had any conversations beyond that. So I don't really know what he's planning, but I'm getting nervous.
Well, he's not planning anything. He just doesn't want to have to order lunch. He wants you to make the lunch order now.
Shit, yeah.
Okay,
that makes so much sense. That makes so much sense. All right, Scott, loud and clear. I got it. Yeah.
All right. So thanks for listening. I've been Arvid.
I've been Mike. It's on him because he's just going to get a lot of blimpies, and that's going to be a real disappointment.
Yeah. I mean, no one goes to Blimpies, and you sometimes come back from Blimpies feeling full. You do not come back from Blimpies not feeling regret.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Bad things come to those who eat at Blimpies.
Bye. Clap on 1, 3, 2, 1.
Let's jam. That was Flawless Tank.